This episode of Silicon Harbor Radio is brought to you by SendPro from Pitney Bowes. SendPro has 3 times the features of Stamps.com at 1/3 the price. Visit pb.com/techlife to learn more and try it free for 90 days. After that, you'll get SendPro for only $5 per month. That's pb.com/techlife.
Welcome to the Tech Life with Rich Conte, bringing you stories from the front lines of the tech industry and the insider's perspective on starting, growing, or thriving in a technology venture.
Welcome to another episode of Silicon Harbor Radio, brought to you by the Tech Life podcast and Silicon Harbor Magazine. I'm your host, Rich Conte. Each episode, we take you inside Charleston's rapidly growing tech and startup community and give a voice to the local entrepreneurs and other contributors driving that growth. On the list of places you'd expect to find a leader in the advertising space, Mount Pleasant, South Carolina likely lags far behind Madison Avenue. In this episode, we talk with the founder and CEO of a digital marketing firm that relocated from New York to Charleston in its early days and has since become one of the most notable success stories in the Charleston business community. Their journey highlights some of the challenges that a successful and growing venture can find itself facing and insights into overcoming those challenges. Our guest on this episode of Silicon Harbor Radio, brought to you by the Tech Life podcast and Silicon Harbor Magazine, is Steve Parker Jr. Steve is CEO and founder of Levelwing. Well, welcome to the show, Steve.
Hey, nice to be here. Thanks.
Steve, can you start by telling listeners a little about Levelwing, the services you provide, and the customers you serve?
Yeah, 100%. From a services standpoint, there's really 4 sort of core categories of business that we're involved in. One's analytics, a lot of data mining, heavy analytics work, which is how we started the business, and then we'll probably get into that a bit later. We do a lot in media delivery, so buying and placing media as it relates to most things digital, as well as TV. And then we also do a lot of content development as it relates to social media content, and then also creative work. So those are the 4 primary lines of business. In terms of clients we serve, we have a fairly wide breadth of clients, most of which are national. Bridgestone Corporation, so the tire company, has been a client for all 15 years of our business. We also work with Lenovo, Mercedes, Moe's Southwest Grill, America Online, Verizon, The Country Germany, and Gildan USA, for example. And there's many others, but those are some of the core brands that most people are probably familiar with.
Now, you hinted at this, but what originally motivated you to start the business, and what were some of the early experiences launching the venture that helped shape what the business would ultimately become?
I think to start Levelwing, it was a year-long conversation with Jeff Adelson-Yan, who started the business with me back in 2002. And then today we actually have a third partner in the business, KYRIE as well, who became a partner in the business a couple of years ago. But the first initial reason, or I say hurdle, we had to get over in order to start the business was just overcoming that fear of Jeff and I were living in New York City, which is where we started the company. We both had really good jobs working in the digital industry, really enjoyed the things that we did, the companies we worked for. And over that year, we would always back off from it because it was a hard thing to think about starting something cold. And then finally, we were having a beer one night, probably more than one, at a place called Brother Jimmy's on the Upper East Side, which was just this dumpy, lack of a better term, college bar. And we had a few beers, and we just decided what's the worst thing that could happen. And we decided we fail, and then we go back and get good jobs. So that's what it took. And literally, Jeff quit his job the next day. So we got started pretty quickly after that conversation.
What were some of the significant early milestones or moments that gave you confidence that the business would be a success?
When we first started the business, one of the things was we actually enjoyed it. We enjoyed the upstart of it, if you will. The results that we had for the first initial few clients we had were pretty outstanding. They were happy, so that was helpful. Happy clients. And we were able to, I would say, over that first 2-year period, land a few brand name clients to work with that were, bigger national companies that sort of gave us continued motivation that, hey, we can really do this. And, I would say those were some of the more significant milestones. One, just enjoying what we did and finding good brands to work with, and then actually providing results for them that they thought were meaningful.
What distinguishes Levelwing from your competition in a pretty crowded space?
We work in a really crowded space, everyone from 2 people in a garage or working out of their home to large multinational agencies to consulting firms are all in our space. It's a very, like you said, it's a very crowded market. Over the years, I've really struggled with what makes us different. And the reason I struggle with that, there's many different reasons. One of the core things is, listen, we're not colonizing Mars like Elon Musk is trying to do. And we're not doing open heart surgery on an infant. It's not as though the things we do are not capable to be done by someone else. I fully believe in the ad industry, media, technology space, the advertising space, that anyone can accomplish what someone else can't. And as we progress in this industry, scale and size has become less and less important because everyone has access to the exact same tools and features and research, and there's really no major barrier to access those things. So when it comes down to, and we've learned this through going through a lot of bumps and bruises, and we've overcome it, and I truly feel that our industry as a whole breeds companies and people within it to have a very fear-based mentality. And what I mean by that is you'll go to meetings with a brand and there's other agencies in the room, and people tend to clash. They will clash immediately without even knowing each other. There's a very big elephant in the room, which is, where are my boundaries? And is anyone overstepping them? And for years, we fell prey to that as well. And it creates an environment for not just the relationships in a room with a client, but also internally within your own organization, where it becomes this fear-based mentality, which breeds you to have a lot of negativity, and it breeds you to bitch and complain and moan about a lot of things that are going on that, frankly, you have full control over and you can change if you want. And just to get focused on the wrong things. And like I said, over many years, we slowly, like the frog that was in the cold pot of water and slowly came to a boil, and then you realize, well, most of the frogs don't get out, but then we finally decided it was a little too hot and we needed to change. And it was sort of came to a point where we were forced to and had to, or else why keep doing this? So, maybe I'm laboring on this a little too long, but I think it's important to understand that in our space, not only is it crowded, but it breeds a lot of negativity. That being said, there are exceptions to that. And there's not many in my personal experience and belief. But the way that we overcame that is we went through a moment of just having to have clarity around it and decided to completely blow up the organization from the inside out, change the way that we communicated as a team. And so today, there's 3 core things that I focus on every day with our whole team, and our team knows this and has adopted this as well. Now, it took us 2.5 years for the full team to adopt all this, but it's a full commitment to the things that we do. And, we can go into the details of that. Communicating better than anyone else. And by communicating, I don't mean more email. I mean more phone conversations, more in-person conversations, and then being really consistent with everything that we do, whether it's how we deliver a product or a service or a communication to a client, or if it's how often we communicate with them. It's all very intentional. And in order for us to change our entire culture, we had to find intention around those 3 things and be really good at it every single day without exception. And because of that, I think we found ourselves in a place where here in 2017, it's super enjoyable to walk in the door every day, which if I look back at 2014, it was super miserable to walk in the door every day. We were still doing great work, but it was a slog. And when you left, you're like, oh my God, I can't wait just to get home and do nothing. Whereas now it's really enjoyable. And we work hard. I mean, everyone still works their ass off, but it's an enjoyable environment. It's one that not only internally has that changed, but the way and the culture in which we interact with our clients has changed dramatically too.
This evolution of the business was really something that you felt on a very personal level, and wasn't just a change to the business operations at Levelwing, but something that you were kind of deeply personally invested in.
Yeah, it was. Look, from 2002 through 2011, the company grew really fast. And frankly, from 2011 through 13, it did as well. And then we had one off year, 2013, where we had a one non-growth year. But that was a year sort of where it all came to a head as well in terms of a frustrating internal environment. We allowed some of these other things to kind of get in our way and blind us and get focused on the wrong things, which I already articulated a little bit about. But it was very personal. And over the years, I had struggled with that. Look, I'll cut to the chase. It became a point where I wasn't being a really good leader. And that impacted everyone. It impacted me as much as anyone as well. And, heck, it even impacted when I would go home, because I'm still frustrated when I'd go there. But I had to get to a point, I think, where it was frustrating enough to, I think, like anything in life, if it's frustrating enough, you'll eventually change it. If it's not quite that painful each day, you may not. You may just deal with it. And it was painful enough where I had to take a serious look in the mirror, for lack of a better term, and say, all right, I've done a good job of bringing this company from point A to point B. Can I go further with it? And in order to do that, I had to improve my leadership capacity and abilities and communication in order to do that. And so I went as far as to hire a personal leadership coach and worked with that individual for 2 full years, a couple hours a week, without exception. So again, to build consistency. I mean, it wasn't like I could do something once a month and get away with it. It was literally every week for a few hours. Honestly, I wish that was something that I would have had experience with a lot earlier in my career, to go through that with someone, because I think it would have improved me as a leader much earlier in my career. That being said, it came when it came, and it fundamentally changed the way that I approach the business. And I think over time, because of the consistency of that and the proof of showing people how, look, I'm making a modification here to how I lead and how I show up for people on a daily basis, that eventually over time, other people did the same. But it wasn't something that happened quickly. It was literally a 2 to 2.5 year process of having to see that happen extremely slowly, because you go into that and you're like, I want to change it today. And it just doesn't change in one day. And you can force it all you want, but it's going to happen in a natural term, if you will. That to me made a dramatic impact, and not just in how I operate within the company and how I communicate with people here, how I show up for them, the things that I'm willing to do for our team and for our clients, but it actually had huge results and impact just on my personal life with, my kids and my wife, and how I'd show up for them and how I'd communicate with them. And it really just had an immeasurable impact. I've had people ask me, well, when did you really see the change happen? And I always said the same thing, that there wasn't some moment where it was like, oh, it's glorious and it's better now. It was a 2.5 year process of doing things with consistency and commitment, and not missing a day or time doing that. It was a critical period in our growth as a company, but also I believe me as a leader and as an individual.
We'll return to our interview with Steve in a moment, but first I want to thank Senpro from Pitney Bowes for sponsoring this episode. Most everyone knows Pitney Bowes as a well-known and respected brand. Our listeners are probably aware of the competitive threat they face from internet-based solutions like Stamps.com. Well, Pitney Bowes is meeting that threat head-on and revolutionizing their business model and portfolio with Senpro. Sure, Senpro lets you print stamps right from your computer, saving time and money with no special equipment, just like Stamps.com. But Senpro takes the self-service postage model even further. Senpro lets you compare shipping rates and delivery times between the USPS and other major carriers to ensure you always get the best deal when you ship packages. Once you've found the shipping option that fits you best, you can print paid shipping labels for USPS, UPS, and more, and then track your shipments all from the same intuitive, user-friendly interface. You save time waiting in line at the post office, and you also save money. Pitney Bowes has negotiated special rates specifically for Senpro users, helping you save 3 cents per stamp or more. Senpro is perfect for e-commerce and internet retailers, especially startup ventures just getting off the ground. Pitney Bowes offers flexible payment options that allow you to mail now and pay later. You can learn more at pb.com/techlife. Sign up and you'll get Senpro free for 90 days, along with a free 10-pound scale. When your free trial is over, you'll get Senpro for only $5 a month, and that rate is good for the lifetime of your subscription. That's $5 a month for Senpro versus $15.99 a month for Stamps.com. That's 3 times the features, 1/3 the price. But you can only get this deal for a limited time by going to pb.com/techlife. That's pb.com/techlife to take advantage of this incredible offer. Pitney Bowes are masters in the craft of making your business succeed, and I want to thank Senpro for sponsoring us here at Silicon Harbor Radio. How do you see Levelwing continuing to grow and evolve from here?
The last 2 years have been the two best growth years that we've ever had in the company, by far. So 2015 was a huge growth year for us, probably 2x any other year we'd ever had. 2016 surpassed that, and then 2017, midway through the year, is already bigger than 2015 was. Wow. So we're having a lot of growth. That growth is not happening just because all of a sudden clients are just giving us business. It's happening because we've done, I believe, or I should say, we've built really great foundations within the company that allows people to do their jobs really well, truly take responsibility and accountability for what they do, be communicated with well, allow themselves to communicate well with others they work with or our clients. And it just allows the freedom for the organization to go do things that we never had the opportunity to do before because we were caught in that minutia that others inevitably get into and don't get out of. We're not many of them. So I think that will continue, and we'll continue to see great organic growth, if you want to call it that from that perspective, although it's very intentional and hard work to get there. And then I do believe that inside the next 12 months, we probably will acquire another company. We're actively involved in pursuing one right now. We tried to complete one at the end of last year and couldn't quite get it done, but I think we will get done one this year. And if we do that well, which I expect we will, because there's real intention and focus and critical thought behind it, it's not just for fun, it's for real desire and need. And I believe if we do that well, then we can look at doing another one probably sometime next year.
You're also one of the partners behind Third Prime Capital. When and how did the idea of taking on a more substantial and formal role as an investor occur to you?
You know, by the nature of the business that I'm in, which is, very much ad tech and media, you see lots of opportunities. I mean, you see them early a lot of times. I didn't necessarily see Facebook before and people invested in it, but you still see it as an early infant type company. And just over the years, I've been involved in two companies that got an IPO. And so you see the market well. And with that, there have been opportunities to invest in companies over the years. It's just at some point I wasn't financially able to invest in those companies and with any sort of means that would matter. Second, I never had a pure background of really vetting companies from an investment perspective that I thought was thorough enough. I mean, I could look at something and decide if I thought it was a good idea or if I liked the people that started it, but to really vet a business and be real thorough on that, you need to have, I believe there needs to be some special criteria to that that's meaningful. And that generally comes from people that have investment backgrounds or finance backgrounds, VC type backgrounds. So if you go back to, say, 2010, 11, there was myself and, of course, my business partner, Jeff, and Levelwing, and two other guys, one of which we'd gone to college with, that we were all, in New York. And we're seeing opportunities all the time. And Jeff and I would talk about the things we were doing. And two of them, which were involved in the VC world, would talk about the big deals they were doing. They're working for bigger companies that would invest $20 or $30 or $50 million in a business. But even they really liked the more infant startup ideas and companies that were looking to raise $500,000 or $1 million. And so we all collectively decided over dinner one night, good ideas come from drinks at dinner, I guess. We decided that let's collectively take some time and find a company that we all like, and we can all like the founders and feel like we can help them in our respective backgrounds. Wes and Keith being attorneys from Harvard and Duke and having worked for Skadden and other big M&A firms and VC firms, and Jeff and I from the marketing and sales, branding and agency side. Let's find a company that we feel like we can impact in some way. So we found a company called Jingle Punks, and funny name, but two great guys that founded it. These guys, Jared and Dan. And we invested about $800,000 in them collectively, the four of us and a couple friends put some money in as well. And then we had a fairly substantial exit 2 years later and sold the company to William Morris Endeavor, the talent agency out of LA. And so over that next 5-year period, we made a number of investments and had a lot of success with most of them, and some are still active and live. And then in December of 2015, Keith and Wes had decided, hey, we were real passionate for wanting to do this full time. So the four of us started Third Prime Capital as a formal entity, went out and raised a little over $32 million for the first fund. And Keith and Wes operated on a daily basis. Jeff and I operate Levelwing on a daily basis, but we're all involved in fundraising, which now thankfully we're done with. And then At this point, looking for deals and opportunities and founders to invest in and vet them properly and find good opportunities. But to really answer your question, it came through seeing that there were opportunities out there and just finding the first right one and having success with it, and then moving on to the second and the third and fourth and so on.
What are you and the other partners at Third Prime Capital hoping to accomplish with the fund?
We want to accomplish having great returns, of course, for the LPs. We have a lot of people that we're beholden to that have invested a lot of money with us to make sure it's successful. But, look, we want to find a handful of really great companies that we can help grow and scale, and they can have really positive exits that benefit all of them, as well as the LPs that we have that are investors in our fund. We have, of course, extremely clear criteria for the way that we vet these companies that we find. And we, get our hands dirty and help them in the areas where we have expertise. So if they need marketing or brand or sales related help and direction, then Jeff and I are great for that. If they need legal or financial advice, Wes and Keith are tremendous at that. And so we find the opportunities where we feel like we can not only write a check, but we can also help them either hands-on or directionally.
You've had a front row seat for the growth of the technology industry and entrepreneurial community here in Charleston. What led you to relocate Levelwing to Charleston initially?
From 2002 to 2007, we were only in New York City, which is where we started the business. And if we needed to hire someone, we could find them easily. You could find someone to hire in a day. It really wasn't a struggle. The problem was retention. And so New York's extremely expensive, and people are heavily, heavily motivated about money there because living is so expensive. And the second piece to that, which makes it tough, is everyone in the city, and when I say everyone, I mean every business, whether it's AOL or if it's Google or if it's Uber or if it's Twitter or it's, you name it, Salesforce, like all these companies have major offices in the city and they all want the same people. Well, then you have the whole ad agency world and they all want the same people. Then all the banking institutions, financial institutions need the same people. And so everyone needs the same people. And so there's actually a huge issue across the board with retention as it relates to New York. So we started looking outside the city and to find a mid-size city that had a lot of growth prospects and that we could operate and really scale the business with some better level of consistency than we had in New York. So we made that decision toward the end of 2007 to do that. We hired the first person here in Charleston in December of 2007. We opened the office officially in February of 2008. I moved down full-time in April of 2008 with my wife, who was extremely pregnant at the time. And so it's worked out extremely well for us in terms of being able to build scale, to find great people, actually spend time to help them mature and grow and learn and work on, and also work on some really big campaigns. So the cool thing is, like, you have this ad agency, which is what we are, very digital focused, that's based here in Charleston, that has some scale to it, that works on, we've done 10 consecutive Super Bowl campaigns. We've done an Olympics campaign. We're working on our second Olympics campaign now. We've done 15 consecutive Indy 500s. We've worked with the NFL, PGA Tour, the National Hockey League, you name it. So these really big things that typically in a mid-sized city agency type environment you wouldn't have access to and be able to work on. So I think we've been able to offer a lot of that, and also at this point, having built a great culture and been through the negative part of it, of course, but then rebuilt it, it's worked out extremely well for us. And in that time, the city has also continued to really grow, both in terms of people and also opportunities.
Yeah. Since that time, from your perspective, what have been the biggest changes in the business community and the community in general?
The city in the last 9 years has grown a lot. I mean, I don't know what number we are now, but I know at one point we were like the 8th or 9th fastest growing city in America. And I think it doesn't seem to slow down at this point. So people growth, a lot of people coming in from all over the United States, not just moving here from close by. People are moving here from Chicago, people moving here from New York and Boston, which may have always been the case in New York and Boston, it seemed like. But now, with Boeing being here, there's a lot of people moving here from the Pacific Northwest. And so, you start to see this different culture start to take place. And, I think that's healthy for the city. As part of that, there's a lot of companies that are relocating here. I mean, it's not just Boeing, of course, but, you have the typical ones everyone talks about, which is Mercedes is moving here and Volvo's moved here to build vehicles. And I think that allows a really solid platform and base from which other companies can thrive. Mm-hmm. And when people have had a lot of experience in those organizations, they go start their own, they start a new business. Yeah. And on top of that, of course, we have a decent, I would say, tech and software development infrastructure that exists in the city. I've seen that grow substantially over the last 9 years. So those are probably two of the main things. And then, of course, you have all the other accoutrements that come with that, which are really great restaurants and, and activities that follow behind that. And that's been fun to see it all mature.
What are the biggest challenges facing Charleston as we seek to sustain and build on the growth we've experienced? What do we need to do to meet those challenges?
I think everyone would agree one of the bigger challenges is just logistics. Mm-hmm. A lot of people complain about traffic. Now, I urge people to go live in New York, Atlanta, or LA and spend some time there and compare, and you won't complain anymore. But look, it's a legitimate complaint for a lifestyle perspective. There's some logistics things that need to improve. They need to widen some highways and connect some different highways and whatnot. But I think overall we need to, accept the growth and find a way to have healthy growth. Mm-hmm. I hear Nashville get mentioned as sort of an example that we would potentially like to be like as a city a lot. And I happen to grow up there. I was born and raised in Nashville, Tennessee, and it's a fantastic city. I love going there, and I go back a lot for work and for personal reasons. In fact, I'm going back there tomorrow to go see a Stanley Cup game and pull for the Predators. But Nashville put in place 25 years ago a really strong strategic plan, and they followed it. They've also had the benefit of healthcare being this massive industry that exists in Nashville from every level of healthcare, whether it's payers, providers, medical device companies, and things of that nature. They've existed there for a long time. So you have this industry that has a $19 or $20 billion impact on that city and holds it up. And I think Charleston has not had that for the most part. Tourism's always been big, but I don't know that that's the only sustainable thing you can have. Nashville's a big tourist city as well. But now that we have a lot of these manufacturing companies, Boeing building jets and Volvo building cars and Mercedes building vans and these other industries that are really large industries that are going to help support the city, I think it starts to build in that strong base that you can continue to build on so that maybe there is that aspiration for becoming the Nashville. We can do all those same things and get there, but have our own flavor to it because clearly we're a coastal city that has a different feel than Nashville does. I think it's a matter of having really healthy growth and a matter of the state funding it well and funding the right things.
Where can listeners go to learn more about Levelwing and about Third Prime Capital?
Well, it's really easy. There's this thing called the internet. And you can go to levelwing.com. It's levelwing.com. Or you could go to thirdprimecapital.com to learn about the VC firm. I'd love for people to experience what we have to offer at Levelwing and spend some time on the site, learn about us, call us, talk to us. Happy to help any way we can.
Steve Parker, CEO and founder of Levelwing. Thanks for joining us today, Steve.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
My conversation with Steve left a significant impression on me and spurred me to think about my communication style and effectiveness in interacting with others on both a professional and personal basis. I think most everyone can identify with the challenges he discussed and can appreciate the way he tackled them head on. I encourage everyone to check out Levelwing's website at levelwing.com and to head over to the Startup Grind Charleston Facebook page and look for the video cast of Steve's fireside chat at a Startup Grind event a while back. You can also find a feature on Steve at Silicon Harbor Magazine. Our partners at Silicon Harbor Magazine are a great resource for keeping up with all of the events and news in the Charleston technology, creative, and entrepreneur community. Visit them at siliconharbormag.com and follow them on Twitter at SiliconHBRMAG. You can follow us at TechLifePod and also find us on Facebook. The best way to keep up with the show is to subscribe. For iTunes, visit www.siliconharborradio.com or search for Tech Life with Rich Conte or Silicon Harbor Radio. If you enjoyed the show, let us know by leaving us a rating and a review. Subscribing via RSS is as simple as visiting techlife.libsyn.com/RSS. I'm always interested in learning about different ways that podcasts are being used. Recently, I came across a venture called Family Sounds that lets you turn your family history into a podcast. They produce oral history audio documentaries by artfully crafting narratives that fit your family story through professional interviews and high-quality production. You can preserve valuable voices and memories of the people you care about most, instill the legacies of real-life heroes, and share the stories of your loved ones in the form of a podcast. To learn more, visit www.en.familysounds.net and use the promo code TechLife. That's all the time we have on this episode of Silicon Harbor Radio, brought to you by the Tech Life Podcast and Silicon Harbor Magazine. I'm your host, Rich Conte, and thanks for listening.